Last night, in an NBC News exclusive, former Penn State defensive coordinator Jerry Sandusky spoke out for the first time since being charged with sexually abusing 8 young boys. Tonight, a key eyewitness speaks out in an interview with CBS News.
Do you have any idea when you think you might be ready to talk?
This process has to play out. I just don't have anything else to say. That's all.
Okay. And then just one last thing. Just describe your emotions right now.
All over the place. Just kind of shaking.
Crazy?
Crazy.
And you said what? Like a
snow globe.
That was Penn State wide receiver coach Mike McQueary, who told a grand jury he witnessed Sandusky raping a young boy in a locker room shower in 2002. In an email obtained by the Associated Press today, McQueary told a friend from Penn State that he stopped that alleged assault by Sandusky and discussed it with police. The email appears to be about a week old, dated November 8th, and reads in part, "I did stop it. Not physically, but made sure it was stopped when I left that locker room. I did have discussions with police and with the official at the university in charge of police." Pennsylvania is not one of the 18 states that require all adults to report suspected child abuse. Today, Senator Bob Casey called for an expedited hearing into how federal laws apply to the Sandusky investigation and to ensure that provisions for reporting suspected cases are in place. Joining me now, an expert in representing sex abuse victims, a lawyer who has been contacted by some of the alleged victims in the Sandusky case, attorney Jeff Herman, and Goldie Taylor from thegrio.com also rejoins us again tonight. Thank you both for joining me tonight.
Thanks for having us, Lawrence.
I want to take a look, before we get into the discussion, I want to take a look at more of Bob Costa's interview with Sandusky last night. I want us all to take a look at it, and to look at it from your perspectives. Goldie, you shared with us, as our viewers know, last night, that when you were in high school, you were subjected to abuse by a high school football coach. And from that perspective of that experience, and obviously, Attorney Herman, from your expert perspective, let's now take another look at this interview with Sandusky.
I say that I am innocent of those charges.
Innocent? Completely innocent and falsely accused in every aspect?
Well, I could say that, I have done some of those things. I have horsed around with kids. I have showered after workouts. I have hugged them, and I have touched their leg without intent of sexual contact. But so if you look at it that way, there are things that would be accurate.
Are you denying that you had any inappropriate sexual contact with any of these underage boys?
Yes, I am.
Never touched their genitals, never engaged in oral sex?
Right.
What about Mike McQueary, the grad assistant who in 2002 walked into the shower where he says in specific detail that you were forcibly raping a boy who appeared to be 10 or 11 years old?
I would say that that's false.
What would be his motive to lie?
You'd have to ask him that.
Are you a pedophile?
No.
What did happen in the shower the night that Mike McQueary happened upon you and the young boy?
Okay, we were showering and horsing around, and he actually turned all the showers on and was actually sliding across the floor, and we were, as I recall, possibly like snapping a towel, horseplay.
In 1998, a mother confronts you about taking a shower with her son and inappropriately touching him. 2 detectives eavesdrop on her conversations with you, and you admit that maybe your private parts touched her son. What happened there?
Well, I can't exactly recall what was said there in terms of what I did say was that if he felt that way, then I was wrong, and I didn't want to leave that kind of impression. I did lift him, and that's what I said.
Shortly after that, in 2000, a janitor said that he saw you performing oral sex on a young boy in the showers in the Penn State locker facility. Did that happen?
No.
How could somebody think they saw something as extreme and shocking as that when it hadn't occurred, and what would possibly be their motivation to fabricate it?
You'd have to ask them.
How do you account for these things? And if you're not a pedophile, then what are you?
Well, I'm a person that has taken a strong interest. I'm a very passionate person in terms of trying to make a difference in the lives of some young people. I had worked very hard to try to connect with them, to make them feel good about themselves, to be something significant in their lives. Maybe this gets misinterpreted, has gotten, depending on. I know a lot of young people where it hasn't. I have worked with many, many young people where there has been no misinterpretation of my actions, and I have made a very significant difference in their lives.
But isn't what you're just describing the classic MO of many pedophiles? There were hundreds, if not thousands, of young boys you came into contact with, but there are allegations that at least 8 of them were victimized. Many people believe there are more to come.
I would guess that there are many young people who would come forward, many more young people who would come forward and say that my methods and what I had done for them made a very positive impact on their life. And I didn't go around seeking out every young person for sexual needs that I've helped. There are many that I didn't have, I hardly had any contact with, who I have helped in many, many ways.
Are you sexually attracted to young boys, to underage boys?
Am I sexually attracted to underage boys? Sexually attracted, I enjoy young people. I love to be around them. But no, I'm not sexually attracted to young boys.
Did Joe Paterno at any time ever speak to you directly about your behavior?
No.
Never?
No.
What are you willing to concede that you've done that was wrong and you wish you had not done it?
Well, in retrospect, I shouldn't have showered with those kids. So.
That's it?
Well, that. That's what hits me the most.
Jeff Herman, I want to get your perspective as an attorney who's handled these kinds of cases in terms of what you think you were just listening to. You've heard guilty people testify. You've heard the way they talk about it. You've heard people who are found not guilty, some people who are innocently charged talk about these kinds of things. What do you think you were just listening to?
Well, to me, this is classic pedophile speak. I mean, first, a pedophile thinks that they're not harming a child, that they are really loving a child and treating them with care, etc. And that's kind of what I hear Sandusky describing. But then the classic pedophile also then kind of justifies their behavior by all the good they've done for other kids. I mean, he even talked about that he wasn't sexually interested in every child. There's all these kids he barely had any contact with at all. And so in his mind, on one hand, he's loving the kids. He doesn't think he was inappropriate at all. So when you ask him, were you sexually inappropriate with the child, in his mind, a pedophile's mind, they're not. But to the rest of the world and to the population, it's inappropriate, and it's classic pedophile speak to me.
Jeff, the governor yesterday said he would like more victims to come forward if they are out there. Goldie Taylor was on this show last night trying to support that notion and trying to give possible victims a sense of support if they do come out. You've had some contact with some of the alleged victims in this case. Do you expect more victims to emerge?
Yeah, I mean, I think really just after hearing Sandusky last night, that will encourage a lot of victims to come forward. When other victims see the perpetrator or the institution in denial, what that does is that kind of sparks them to say, hey, this stuff is true, I'm going to come forward. And then also what we see is this collective empowerment. For many victims, when it happens, they're isolated, they're scared, they're alone. You saw what happened as soon as there were allegations against the Penn State institution, there were riots in the streets. So in those kind of circumstances, you can understand why victims are afraid to come forward. But now, when there's momentum and victims see other victims coming forward, there's a collective empowerment, and it gives them the strength to come forward, which is, they need to get help. Victims should come forward, get some professional help, because they're not alone. And the worst thing for a victim is to suffer in silence.
Goldie, you've had the terrible, unfortunate experience of being around these kinds of predators in the worst possible way, not in a courtroom, but unprotected as a child yourself. You've heard them talk. What do you think you just heard?
Well, I'm hearing Jerry Sandusky really out of two ears. One, I'm hearing him as, having been victimized in this way, by a football coach. And you got to feel like something is just amiss with this guy, that he really doesn't know that he's harming children, that he doesn't know that, this isn't the way that you show your love and support and passion for children and supporting them in their growth. And so I hear it out of this ear that, something is tragically wrong here. But I also hear it out of the ear of having been a crisis communications expert for the mass part of my career. And at the end of the day, if I'm Jerry Sandusky's lawyer, I don't let him make this phone call, let alone with Bob Costas, one of the top-tier journalists on this planet, sports or otherwise. And so at the end of the day, he certainly wasn't properly prepared for a live interview like this. And certainly, the impact that it could have, or I expect it to have, on his victims, on other victims, to come up and stand out, I think could really turn the table on this.
Yeah, there are many levels of shock here, and for me it includes, how could a lawyer let this happen? We're going to take a break here and come back, and Jeff Herman, I want to get your perspective on that one, especially how did a lawyer let that conversation happen last night? There's going to be more later in the show coming up. It has been a wild day at Occupy Wall Street protests. Police came in the middle of the night to clear out the protesters. That sparked an all-day legal battle. We'll go live to the protest site to see where things stand at this hour. And later, Gabby Gifford's recovery. Today, the Congresswoman released a message to her constituents. The intern hero who helped save Gifford's life gets tonight's last word.